The first myth: Ukrainian is an artificial language created in the 18th century by nobleman Ivan Kotlяревский. To debunk this myth, we came to the golden-decked 11th century cathedral. Medieval inscriptions have been preserved on its interior walls till these days.
It is a 12th century graffiti. There is an assumption that it was written by Kievan Prince Volodymyr Monomach. It says, "Lord, help your slave, Volodymyr," not Vladimir, as it is used in Russian. Over 7,000 graffiti that date back from the 11th to the 18th century have been preserved till this day. Thanks to these inscriptions, we can learn how the Ukrainian language developed.
The second myth: Ukrainian is a dialect of Russian. That is why the two languages have a lot in common. In fact, Ukrainian is closer to Belarusian, Czech, Slovenian, and Polish than to Russian. Let's compare. Red in Russian is krasny, while in Ukrainian червоний, in Polish червоний, and in Belarusian червоний.
Найбільше спільних рис в українською.
Ukrainian has the largest number of lexical similarities with Belarusian, that is 84%, with Slovakian 72%, Polish 70%, and with Russian only 62%. This means if we take a sentence consisting of 10 words, only 6 of them will be similar in Ukrainian and Russian, in Slovakian, Polish, and Ukrainian, 7 words, and in Belarusian and Ukrainian from 8 to 9.
The third myth: the eastern regions of Ukraine were always Russian-speaking. In fact, modern-day Donbass had always been Ukrainian since the Cossack era. However, time passes. After committing the Holodomor, the Soviet authorities decided to bring Russians to the territory of southern and eastern Ukraine. A regulation of the Council of USSR People's Commissars from October 25, 1933 says that 21,000 Russian families were planned to be settled in these areas.
The Holodomor, or the man-made famine in particular, killed millions of Ukrainians who lived in modern Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Luhansk regions. In fact, it led to a devastating result for Ukrainian ethnicity. That is why the territory was later settled by people both from Ukraine and remote parts of Russia. Thus, the language transformations occurred after the Holodomor.
The fourth myth: Ukrainian is widely spoken only in western regions of the country, mainly in rural areas. Polls conducted by the Razumkov Center in 2017 say that 68% of Ukrainians consider Ukrainian to be their mother tongue, while 14% of Ukrainians consider Russian to be their native language. Only 17% consider both Ukrainian and Russian to be their mother tongue. It is true that Ukrainian is the most widely used in the western regions, as there it is spoken by 83% of respondents, in central Ukraine by 84%.
When these events began in eastern Ukraine in 2014, many people reoriented themselves and began to speak Ukrainian. It was the instinct of preservation of their national identity, so to say. They thought, you act like this? Then I will defend my Ukrainian traits.
The fifth myth is about the new language law adopted on April 25th this year. The myth says that Russian speakers will be detained by language inspectors, and those who don't know Ukrainian will face criminal liability.
There is no criminal liability at all in the law. There is only administrative liability. So you might pay a fine, for example, when you provide some services to people, especially commercial services. Of course, you are required to at least to know, to understand the language, the Ukrainian language, and to respond to people in this language as well.
The law doesn't introduce any changes into the criminal code. That is why it doesn't foresee any punishment for not knowing Ukrainian. The article on language inspection, in turn, was taken out of the law for avoiding any speculations.